my god.
What is it?
Skeletons.
Skeletons!
Yes.
There's one problem with that.
What's that?
The Grail cannot pass beyond the Great Seal.
It's not the Grail.
That is the boundary, Pierce. That is the price of immortality.
Petra's most famous structure, the Treasury, which has been described as a royal tomb for 2,000 years. Today, that very story is facing its biggest question. In 2024, a sealed stone slab beneath the ground in front of it was broken open for the first time, and the moment it opened, what appeared inside wasn't found in any history book. Burnt walls, heavy air, and skeletons in such a condition, as if they had been trying to escape till their last moments. No treasure, no ritual, just a terrifying silence, buried for 2,000 years. And the real story begins now, because as the excavation moved forward, one by one, such pieces of evidence came out that clearly showed this place was not made for the dead, but it was made to lock living people inside. Now the question is, why were these people imprisoned here? And is this truth limited to just this one place, or is there more hidden beneath Petra? What's about to be revealed next will make you think till the very end. Before moving ahead in the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can watch such videos first. Petra, known as the Rose Red City, and its most famous structure, the Treasury. If you've ever heard about it, you've probably been told the same thing, that it was a royal tomb. Tour guides, books, documentaries, all tell the same story, that some great king or important person was buried here. From the front, it even looks true. Such beautiful carvings, massive stonework, and that grand entrance. Everything feels like a royal tomb. The Nabateans were considered among the greatest engineers and architects of their time. They carved entire cities out of mountains. They built such an advanced water system that thousands of people could live comfortably even in the desert. And the Treasury has always been seen as the finest example of their craftsmanship. That's why for years, no one even questioned this story. But this is where the real story starts to turn. Because when you look at this structure closely, some things feel strange. There's no clear inscription here, no king's name, no solid proof that can confirm it was actually a tomb, yet everyone believed it. And that was the most dangerous part. Now slowly the new evidence that has come out points to only one thing, that maybe for 2,000 years, we have been living in a very big misunderstanding. The Bedouin families living around Petra. They knew this place far better than we do. For them, the Treasury was not a tourist spot or a place to take photos, but a place you should keep your distance from. For generations, they passed down some strict rules, like never go near that structure after sunset, don't let children play around it, and never sleep on the ground in front of it. It might sound strange, but for them, these weren't just stories. These were direct survival instructions. Think about it, like a poisonous well in a village where people keep warning children again and again. Don't go near it. Don't drink the water because it's dangerous. In the same way, the Bedouins saw the Treasury without any drama, without any mystery, just a dangerous place. The strangest part is, they never explained what the actual danger was. Just that don't go near it. And when a place is avoided, not just out of fear, but through strict rules, it means there is something there, something they knew, but wanted to keep hidden from the world. In 1812, when the European explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt first reached Petra, he thought he was about to make a historic discovery. But the strangest thing wasn't the structure itself. It was the behavior of the people there. The local guides with him didn't even want to stop near the Treasury. As soon as the place came into view, they quickly moved ahead without saying anything. They didn't look around, didn't share any details. Burckhardt clearly wrote in his diary that this behavior wasn't normal. It felt like they were trying to avoid some unknown fear. But the real mystery began when later travelers shared their experiences. Those who stayed near the Treasury at night reported some very strange things. Many said they could hear slow, rhythmic breathing sounds coming from beneath the ground, as if something alive was below. Some talked about a sudden drop in temperature. Even in the middle of the desert, there was a strange cold that could only be felt around that exact spot. There was also a very unusual smell in the air, a sharp metallic scent like iron and wet stone, something hard to ignore. The most shocking part was that these experiences were reported by different people, at different times, with no connection to each other, yet their descriptions were almost exactly the same. That was the point where it started becoming clear. This wasn't just imagination or fear, but something that was truly present there. As these strange events started coming to light, the scientific community didn't take them seriously. Instead, they simply dismissed them. They said all of this was just folklore, superstition, or the imagination of people spending nights in the desert. According to them, the breathing sounds, the sudden cold, or the metallic smell, all of it could just be tricks of the mind. And for many years, this explanation was accepted as the truth, because no solid evidence had come forward. But then something from the 1950s surfaced that made the whole situation questionable again. In a Jordanian archaeological memo, the ground in front of the treasury was described as unusual. It clearly stated that the structure of that area didn't seem natural, but something different, as if something was hidden underneath. This wasn't just a casual remark, it was part of an official document. And then, that memo suddenly disappeared. No official statement, no explanation, no denial. Where the record was simply removed from government files, as if it had never existed. Now the real question is, if there was nothing important in it, why was there any need to remove it? And if there was, then what exactly was written that had to be hidden? This is where the suspicion starts to grow deeper. On one side, scientists were dismissing everything as superstition, and on the other side, an official document disappears without a trace. It could still be a coincidence. But when coincidences start happening again and again, they stop being coincidences. No one openly accepted it. No one clearly denied it. And that silence was the most frightening part. After the 1950s, one thing became clear. There was something about the ground in front of the treasury that authorities didn't want to talk about openly. From 1960 to 2020, and several research teams submitted official proposals to excavate the area. Experts from different countries, new technologies, full preparation, but the result was always the same. Either the proposals were directly rejected, or they were delayed indefinitely. In some cases, there wasn't even a response. The official reason was always the same. Structural risk, meaning if excavation was done, it could damage a valuable historical structure like the treasury. On paper, this reason seemed completely valid, because no one would want to risk such a famous heritage site. But as more inside details started coming out, the story began to look a little different. Some senior archaeologists later hinted that the real concern was not the structure collapsing, but what might come out from below. In internal meetings, one term kept coming up again and again. Disclosure problem, meaning if an excavation happened and something big was revealed, it could be difficult to handle. Some documents even mentioned that it could lead to cultural panic, fear, confusion, or even chaos among people. And then another shocking detail came out. In some old records, there was a mention of an unauthorized excavation from the 1930s, but all its notes were missing. Only a small fragment remained, and at the bottom it clearly said, "Do not disturb the lower chamber. This is not a tomb." That's it. No explanation of what it was. No reason why it shouldn't be touched. This is where the difference between protection and danger becomes clear. If a place is valuable, it is protected. But if a place is dangerous, it is hidden. Then came 2024, and from here, the whole story suddenly changed. Some leaked satellite images created a stir in the research world. In these images, strange shapes were visible beneath the ground in front of the treasury. Straight lines, right-angle patterns, a kind of geometric structure that didn't look natural at all. It was clearly felt that something was built underneath, and that too intentionally. As soon as these images came out, pressure on the authorities started rising rapidly. The excavation proposals that had been delayed for years could no longer be ignored. Researchers, media, and international organizations were all asking the same question. If there is nothing below, then why fear excavation? Finally, permission was granted, but this was no ordinary excavation. Strict rules were put in place. It was said that the excavation would be completely reversible, meaning whatever was removed could be restored back to its original state. Sensors were installed at every step so that even the smallest structural change could be detected immediately. Every inch was recorded, every layer documented. Everything was kept under tight control. But the strangest part was the final instruction given to the team before the excavation began. Don't treat this as heritage. Treat this as containment. Meaning this wasn't just a discovery, it was the preparation to open something that had perhaps already been considered dangerous. Now the real work began, to find out what was hidden beneath the ground, and this time, not guesses but solid scientific methods were trusted. The team used not just one, but 3 different technologies, so that no doubt would remain. First, GPR, ground-penetrating radar, was used, which sends waves into the ground and shows the structure below. When the data came in, a strange pattern appeared. There was an empty space underneath, but it didn't look like a natural cave. Its boundaries were clear, the edges were straight, as if it had been deliberately built. After that, electrical resistivity imaging was used, where the electrical resistance of different parts of the ground is measured. This clearly shows where there is solid rock and where there is empty space. This test showed the same thing, a rectangular structure, completely different from the natural layers around it. Then the third technique, magnetometry, was applied, which detects magnetic changes beneath the ground. And here too, the same result came out. 3 different technologies, 3 different methods, but one single conclusion. There was a clean rectangular chamber beneath the ground. Now this could no longer be called a coincidence. If one machine had shown this, it could have been considered an error. But all 3 giving the same result clearly proved that this was not a natural formation. And the most surprising part was that its size and design matched ancient Nabatean containment structures, mentioned in old inscriptions. Places built to lock something inside, not to bury the dead. When geoarchaeologist Dr. Sarah Khalil saw this data, she didn't check it just once. She verified it 3 times, every time the result was the same. She immediately called the excavation director. Both of them stared at the screen for a few seconds, and without saying a word, because what they were looking at was a precise, deliberately constructed structure, so perfect that ignoring it was now impossible. And this was the moment when, for the first time, the suspicion became clear that beneath the treasury, it wasn't just empty space, but something that had been intentionally sealed away. But as soon as the team started scanning this structure more deeply, things began to get even stranger. The radar signals were not behaving normally. Many times it felt like the waves were hitting something and not returning proper data. The technicians thought it might be a fault in the machines, so they recalibrated the equipment and scanned again. But every time the same problem appeared, the same disturbance, the same anomaly. Now it was becoming clear that this was not any external interference, but that the disturbance was coming from inside the sealed chamber itself, as if something inside was deliberately disrupting the signals. Then, when magnetometry and thermal data were analyzed, another shocking detail came out. Inside that chamber, there were signs of heat that were completely different from any normal tomb. Usually burial places stabilize in temperature over time, but this wasn't the case here. The data showed repeated bursts of intense heat, as if fires had been lit inside multiple times. And then sediment analysis made the story even more disturbing. The layers of soil showed signs of compression, indicating that heavy objects, possibly bodies, had moved or shifted forcefully inside. This was not a calm burial process, but something that involved force, movement, and struggle. As the excavation reached deeper, the first thing that made everyone stop were the narrow and extremely steep stairs carved into the stone. These stairs went straight down, but just by looking at them, it was clear something was wrong. They were not built for comfortable descent, nor for any religious procession or burial ritual. The steps were uneven, the slope changed suddenly, and the whole structure made it difficult to maintain balance while going down. It felt as if they were deliberately designed in such a way that no one could easily go down. And even if someone did, they would feel uneasy. One of the most important features of Nabatean architecture was that everything was designed carefully and with balance. Their tombs were wide, level and well organized, so people could move easily. But here, everything was the opposite. And the strangest part, there were no carvings around these stairs, no inscriptions, no religious symbols. While in Petra, almost every place has something carved or written. Here there was only silence, empty stone, as if this place had been intentionally kept away from recognition. As the team went further down, the structure of the walls gave an even bigger clue. These walls were not normal. They were reinforced in such a way that they weren't meant to handle pressure from outside, but from inside. Structural analysis clearly showed that the stones were arranged in a way that even if force was applied from within, the walls wouldn't break. This means the place was built to stop something from getting out. Then some marks on the walls made the atmosphere even heavier. At hand level, there were scratches everywhere, uneven, deep, and random. These were not tool marks. After examination, experts said these were caused by repeated friction and force, as if someone had kept rubbing the stone, pushing against it, trying to get out. These were clear signs of struggle, of attempts that probably never succeeded. And then another shocking detail appeared. A little below the stairs, a second passage turned off, but it was completely filled with stones and debris. It looked like it had been deliberately sealed later so that no one could ever use that path again. This was not a natural collapse. It was a decision to end that route forever. By now, all the separate clues were starting to connect. The steep and unstable stairs, the plain walls with no identity, the reinforcement built to resist pressure from inside, the marks of struggle, and a path that was intentionally sealed forever. All of this pointed to one thing. This place was made for going in, but not for coming out. And this is where the story truly becomes frightening, because it means that whoever went down there never had a way back. As soon as the team reached the end of the stairs, what stood in front of them completely changed the atmosphere. There was a massive stone slab at the bottom, so precise, so tightly fitted that there wasn't even the slightest gap along its edges. This wasn't just a normal door. It was a seal that was never meant to be opened again once it was closed. When the team examined it closely, one thing became absolutely clear. It was completely airtight. That means no air could pass in or out, no cracks, no locking system, because none was needed. Its weight, its fitting, and its design were so perfect that opening it from the inside was impossible. If someone was inside, they could only remain inside. Dr. Aaron Darby, an archaeologist from the University of Tennessee who was part of the excavation himself, said one thing after seeing this seal, something the whole team later kept repeating: "This is too much for a tomb." And honestly, if this was just a burial place, then why was there a need for such a heavy, airtight, and perfectly sealed structure? Tombs are made to honor the dead. But this felt like it was built to lock something away forever. Now the question was, how do you open it? The excavation team began working very carefully. Every step was measured, every stone was slowly removed. There was a strange silence in the air, as if everyone somehow knew that what was about to be revealed wouldn't be normal. And then, that moment came. As soon as the seal was slightly broken, a faint sound was heard. It felt like a long, trapped breath, slowly being released after ages. Several team members froze on the spot. Some stepped back, some covered their faces. That sound wasn't just a sound. It was the breaking of 2,000 years of sealed silence. And then, the air from inside came out, heavy, stale, and strangely toxic. It carried the smell of soot, as if fires had been lit inside many times, along with a sharp, chemical-like odor that burned the throat. One member immediately stepped back and stopped breathing. Another began covering their eyes. For a few seconds, everything stopped. The excavation director stood still, without moving. He signaled the team to pause and waited for the air inside to clear a little. But what was being felt in that moment wasn't just fear. It was the realization that they had opened something that perhaps should never have been opened. Until now, everything they had found, the stairs, the walls, the marks, were just hints. But this seal, this was the final boundary. Whatever was behind it was going to change the entire story. And now, that boundary was broken. There was no turning back anymore, because what had been sealed for 2,000 years was finally about to come out. As soon as the air inside cleared a little and the team stepped into the chamber for the first time, what they saw in front of them left everyone completely silent for a few seconds. Skeletons were lying on the floor, but this was not a normal burial scene. The bones were in place, even somewhat arranged, but their positions were telling a very different story. Many skeletons were lying face down, something never seen in any known Nabatean burial tradition. Some had their arms bent in such a way, as if in their final moments they had tried to lift themselves or hold on, but failed. The strangest part, there were no ornaments, no identity markers, no inscriptions with any of the skeletons. No names, no titles, nothing to show who these people were. Only small clay bowls were placed near them, and even those were set at precise distances, as if someone had placed them very deliberately. One bowl was found pressed against the ribs of a skeleton, as if it had been held there in the final moment.
Everything here looked so calm that at first glance it almost seemed normal. But the longer you looked, the more you felt that this calm wasn't real. It was a forced silence. Then the team moved toward the second chamber, and what they saw there was even more terrifying. As soon as they entered, the walls appeared completely black, covered with a thick layer of soot. It was clear that fires had been lit inside this sealed space again and again. But why? If this was a burial place, why was there a need for so much fire? Skeletons were scattered across the floor, but this time they were not arranged. They were piled over each other, as if in chaos everyone had collapsed together. Many skulls were broken, ribs crushed, and this was not normal decay over time. The experts clearly said these injuries did not happen after death, but before or at the moment of death. And then there was one scene that shook the entire team to the core. A small child's skeleton, tightly pressed against an adult. The child's arms were positioned as if trying to hold on to someone, and from the position of the adult's bones, it seemed they had held that child until the very last moment. This wasn't any ritual. This was someone's final attempt to protect a loved one in the middle of fear. In one corner of the chamber, 3 skeletons were placed separately, not scattered like the others, but deliberately set apart. One of them showed signs that pointed toward a higher status, while the other 2 had severe injury marks on their bodies. Nearby, in the clay vessels, a thick, dark residue was found. See, when its chemical analysis was done, it revealed ash, plant resin, and iron-rich compounds. These were the same substances that, in ancient times, were used to confuse, weaken, or control people. This means these people were not just locked in. Something else was also done to them. On top of that, many skeletons showed abnormalities in their joints, the kind that happen when a body is kept restrained for a long time. The way the bones in the hands and legs were bent clearly showed they had been held back, controlled, restrained. By now, everything that had come forward wasn't just frightening. A much bigger truth was slowly becoming clear. One thing kept repeating throughout this entire structure. There were no names anywhere, no inscriptions, no identities. Usually, ancient civilizations left something behind for their dead. Names, symbols, prayers, so they would be remembered. But here, there was nothing, as if these people had been completely erased. And this is where the real point becomes clear. This was not a mistake. This was a system whose purpose was to completely remove identity. In ancient Nabatean texts, there are mentions of certain places that researchers today call removal structures. These were locations where people considered a threat to society, or those meant to be completely forgotten, were taken. These were neither prisons nor tombs. but something in between. Places from where no one returned, and the outside world never knew what happened inside. Now, if we connect the evidence found beneath the treasury with these descriptions, the picture becomes completely clear. Steep stairs, difficult to descend. Strong walls, built to resist pressure from inside. Blocked passages, impossible to reopen. Burnt walls, showing repeated fires inside. Restrained bodies, with no identity. All of this points to one thing. This place was not built for burial, but for containment. And now the biggest question. What was the treasury itself? The structure we see above, the beautiful carvings, the grand entrance, the stunning design. Maybe its real purpose was something else. It wasn't a king's tomb. It was a facade, a mask designed to draw attention upward, so no one would ever think of looking below. Beauty above, truth below. For centuries, people kept taking pictures of that structure, kept admiring it, but no one ever thought about what might be hidden right beneath it. And that was the biggest success of this entire system. Distraction. 2,000 years. For a full 2,000 years, this truth remained buried under the ground. No one suspected it. No one questioned it. And now that it has come to light, this is not just the story of one place. It completely changes the way we look at ancient civilizations. We know them for their art, architecture, and great achievements. But did they also have such dark systems, designed to make people disappear forever? And if a world-famous structure like the treasury can hide such a massive truth beneath it, then imagine what could be hidden in the rest of Petra. Because the truth is, there are hundreds of such structures in Petra that have still not been fully excavated. There are pathways that remain sealed, chambers that no one has ever entered. And now the question arises, are they all just tombs? Or is there something else hidden beneath them as well? Something that could completely change history once revealed? Because what has been found so far might just be the beginning. And maybe the most frightening part is not that all of this happened 2,000 years ago, but how it stayed hidden for so long. If the most famous place could hide such a big truth, then imagine how much more is still buried beneath the ground.